You get a call from Big U telling you Nipsey just got killed.
Yeah.
You panic, call Nip. Nip answered the phone.
Yeah.
He was involved with the Nipsey situation. And I want to let the detectives, because they're supposed to reopen Nipsey's case.
The streets have long tied Big U to Nipsey's death, but now in a shocking twist, Snoop Dogg's name is dragged into it too. Reports claim both men just received a massive sentence connected to the case. How did Snoop get caught in this mess? Turns out he might have been playing both sides. I've got all the details. Let's break it down. Big U's web of murder and betrayal exposed. Eugene Big U Henley, that so-called reformed OG who'd been playing the community hero role, just got exposed for running what the feds calling a mafia-like criminal enterprise. But hold up, this ain't just about some regular street crimes. We talking about allegations that this man had his hands in Nipsey Hussle's murder, and the evidence starting to stack up like bodies in the morgue. See, Big U been moving different ever since March 2025, when them federal boys came knocking. The 43-count RICO indictment paint a picture of a man who'd been using his street credibility and anti-gang activism as cover for some seriously dark business. But what really got the streets buzzing is how this whole thing connects back to neighborhood Nip's death on March 31st, 2019. Now, before y'all start thinking this some conspiracy theory nonsense, let me break down the facts that got even the feds paying attention. See, Tremaine Loose Cannon Williams dropped some serious allegations on No Jumper that had Big U scrambling to send cease and desist letters.
So he FaceTimed me and stuff like that. He was like, Nipsey just got killed. I'm like, sick, so I didn't hear that. So I hang up with him. I called Nipsey and I'm like, Nipsey, what's up? He was like, oh, what's up with it?
Nipsey answered.
Nipsey answered. He answered the phone. And I was like, I love you, cuz, or whatever like that.
Yo, that's some heavy allegations right there. Loose Cannon basically saying Big U had advance notice of the hit, but it don't stop there, fam. This man went further, claiming the whole situation was an internal homicide within the Rolling 60s that Big U orchestrated through his influence over the gang. And yo, the timing of that contract situation got everybody looking sideways. Big U signed Nipsey to a 10-year production deal back in 2009 with Unique Music, and that contract was set to expire in 2019, the exact same year Nipsey got murdered.
So I signed Nipsey to Unique Music. So I signed into it. It was signed to a 10-year production contract, which started in 2009, which would end 2019.
Now that's what I call suspicious timing. Nipsey was about to be free from Big U's control, and suddenly he ends up dead? The streets ain't buying that coincidence. But let me tell y'all about the real depth of this conspiracy. See, Big U wasn't just some random OG trying to make moves. This man had his fingers in every dirty pie you could imagine. The feds revealed that his criminal enterprise was involved in everything from human trafficking to COVID-19 relief fraud. This man was using his non-profit Developing Options, supposed to help at-risk youth, as a front to launder money and hide his criminal activity. Imagine that, taking money from celebrities like Shaquille O'Neal and Draymond Green, who thought they was helping the community, but really funding a criminal operation. The parallels between what happened to Nipsey and what Big U did to Rayshawn Williams in 2021 are chilling, yo. Both were artists under Big U's influence. Both made music that disrespected him, and both ended up dead. Williams was lured to Las Vegas under the pretense of working with a Grammy-winning producer, just like how Nipsey might have been set up through his own connections and trust in the community. But Loose Cannon ain't the only one pointing fingers. Former death row artist SKG told TMZ that Big U had something to do with the murder of Nipsey Hussle. This woman been saying Big U was running extortion schemes, forcing artists to pay protection fees, that whole check-in culture that Nipsey was strongly against. She claiming Nipsey's opposition to these practices made him a target.
He was involved with the Nipsey situation, and I want to let the detectives, because they're supposed to reopen Nipsey's case.
The way SKG tell it, Big U was making artists pay to operate in LA, and Nipsey wasn't having none of that. She said Big U physically assaulted her while she was pregnant, and Nipsey was present during some meeting where this went down. According to her, Nipsey and his people set her up for that beating, but she also claiming Big U's violence shows his character. What's really crazy is how Big U operated like a real mob boss, using intimidation and violence to control his territory. The RICO indictment details how he used social media, documentaries, and podcasts to create fame for and stoke fear of the Big U enterprise, its members, and its associates. This man wasn't just content with controlling the streets. He wanted everyone to know he was in charge. Now, Big U been trying to shut all this down. After Loose Cannon's No Jumper appearance, Big U sent a cease and desist letter demanding they remove the episode for defamation. But here's where it gets real interesting. When the feds arrested Big U in March 2025, they specifically requested that cease and desist letter.
The feds, when they did come, they only wanted one thing, and I feel like this will be of special interest to you. They wanted the cease and desist from Big U in regards to Loose Cannon's first appearance on No Jumper, in which Luce basically implicated Big U in the murder of the late great Nipsey Hussle.
That tells you the feds taking these Nipsey allegations seriously, even if they ain't part of the current RICO case. They investigate in every angle, and Big U's connection to Nipsey's death definitely on their radar. But yo, let's talk about what Big U been saying in his defense. On Drink Champs back in 2021, this man called the conspiracy theories the dumbest saw in the world. He claiming they never stopped talking, and that Nipsey called him Unk when he signed with Atlantic Records. Big U trying to paint a picture of reconciliation, saying he was even promoting Nipsey's Victory Lap album on social media. But hold up, the streets remember that physical altercation between Big U and Nipsey, the incident over a diss track where Big U allegedly threw a water bottle at Nipsey and Black Sam had to fire shots in the air to de-escalate the situation.
Nipsey did the diss song. A lot of people don't know Nipsey got a Big U diss song. They don't know it.
You don't have a clue.
Right? You don't have a clue. Something like that, right? You mentioned his name and everything, right?
That don't sound like no peaceful relationship to me. And now, with Big U facing life in prison for running a criminal enterprise that included the 2021 murder of aspiring rapper Rayshawn Williams, another artist who made a diss track about him, the pattern becoming clear. The feds saying Big U been running the Big U enterprise since 2010, involved in murder, extortion, human trafficking, and fraud. Acting U.S. Attorney Joseph McNally called it out. The allegations reveal a criminal enterprise that engaged in murder, extortion, human trafficking, and fraud, all led by a supposed anti-gang activist and purported music entrepreneur who was nothing more than a violent street criminal. When them federal boys came for Big U on March 19th, 2025, he tried to run. This man turned off his phones and fled his Hyde Park home, posting videos on Instagram claiming innocence and racial persecution. But by evening, his lawyer convinced him to surrender, and he'd been locked up ever since.
I'm looking at this video as I come in to turn myself in, and I'm disheartened by the fact that they trying to say that I stole something from Developing Option, or I used Developing Option as a front. Developing Option paid my bills. They paid my house note.
Big U pleaded not guilty to all 43 counts on April 8, 2025, but the judge ain't playing. He's staying behind bars pending trial. His attorney talking about a vigorous defense, but with the evidence stacking up and the feds investigating his connection to Nipsey's death, Big U looking at spending the rest of his life in a cage. But here's where the story gets even more twisted. Snoop Dogg's name been getting dragged into this mess, and the way it all connects gonna make your head spin. Snoop Dogg's dangerous alliance with Big U. Yo, let me tell y'all about how Uncle Snoop got his name mixed up in this whole Nipsey situation. And trust me, this story about to have you questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty in the game. See, Snoop Dogg's relationship with Big U been flying under the radar for years. But now, with all this heat coming down, people starting to connect some real disturbing dots. First off, let's talk about how Snoop and Nipsey was supposed to be tight.
Batman or Superman? Batman. Batman? Okay. Yeah, Batman. Batman had gadgets and gear and cars and mansions. Batman was balling.
These two had what looked like a genuine bond built on mutual respect and West Coast solidarity. Snoop first heard Nipsey's music when a friend gave him a CD. And yo, the way he tells it at Nipsey's memorial is touching. The first time I got his CD, I didn't listen to it. Then about a week later, I'm rolling up a blunt on his CD and I opened the CD up. I was like, damn, cuz it's hard. They collaborated on tracks like Upside Down from Snoop's Malice in Wonderland album, and Nipsey looked up to Snoop as a big homie from the West Coast. In a 2010 Complex interview, Nipsey said, "Snoop is our big homie from LA, from the West Coast. He's one of the reasons I wanted to rap as a kid." But here's where it gets interesting. Snoop always respected Nipsey's independence. When Nipsey turned down playing Snoop in Straight Outta Compton, saying, "No disrespect, big homie, but I can't play you, because then people are going to just know me for being you. I gotta be me." Snoop called that move gangster as a motherfucker. That respect went both ways, with Snoop saying at the memorial that Nipsey inspired me to be more involved in my community. So on the surface, everything looks solid between Snoop and Nipsey. But let's talk about the other relationship that's been raising eyebrows, Snoop's connection to Big U. Now, Snoop's relationship with Big U go way back through the LA gang and music scene. Both these men got deep roots in the Crips, Snoop with the Rollin' 20s, Big U with the Rollin' 60s. In the 2021 FX docuseries Hip Hop Uncovered, Snoop described Big U as institutionalized and short-tempered, but called him a leader who could command respect and clear the streets. That description right there should have been a red flag. When Snoop saying Big U can clear the streets, he essentially co-signing Big U's power and influence in the criminal underworld. And yo, this was after Big U already had his hands in managing Nipsey and running his alleged extortion schemes. But here's where the story takes a real dark turn. A 2025 YouTube video titled "The Day Snoop Dogg Chose Big U Over Nipsey Hussle" exposed some serious allegations about Snoop's role in Big U's operation. The video claiming Snoop was helping promote Big U's extortion of rappers, specifically that check-in scheme where artists had to pay protection fees to operate in LA. Now, this the same check-in culture that Nipsey was strongly opposing. While Nipsey was trying to build up the community and create opportunities for artists to operate independently, Big U was running a racket demanding artists pay him for protection. And according to these allegations, Snoop was either supporting or staying silent about Big U's extortion game. The deeper you dig into this relationship, the more twisted it becomes. See, Snoop's connection to Big U wasn't just casual. They had business ties that went back to the Death Row era. Big U's early career was supported by Suge Knight, who provided him studio access during his parole in 2004. This directly linked Big U to Snoop's circle, and it explains how Big U was able to gain so much influence in the industry. What makes this even more suspicious is how Snoop maintained relationships with both men while they was beefing. Any real street dude knows you can't play both sides when there's conflict. You either with one or the other. But Snoop somehow managed to stay cool with Big U while also claiming to support Nipsey's vision for the community. The video breaks it down like this. Big U is known for forcing artists to check in with him, something Nipsey was strongly against. But instead of backing Nipsey's position, Snoop maintained his relationship with Big U, essentially choosing the extortionist over the community advocate. This betrayal got so deep that reports came out saying Nipsey's brother Black Sam lost respect for Snoop due to his recent association with Big U, a figure many believe had a hand in Nipsey's tragic death. Think about that for a minute. Nipsey's own blood family turning against Snoop because of his Big U connections. But yo, it gets worse. The street's been talking about how Snoop's neutrality in the Hip Hop Uncovered documentary was really him protecting Big U. Instead of calling out Big U's criminal behavior, Snoop gave him a platform and legitimacy by describing him as a leader. That's some real snake behavior right there. What's really disturbing is how Snoop's influence could have been used to prevent Nipsey's death if he really wanted to. As a respected OG with connections throughout LA, Snoop had the power to mediate conflicts or warn people about dangerous situations. But according to the streets, he chose to stay neutral and let things play out, which ultimately cost Nipsey his life. And let's not forget about Snoop's history of questionable loyalty. The same YouTube video that exposed his Big U connection also brought up his alleged betrayals going back to the Tupac era, calling Snoop the biggest rat and linking his survival in the game to possible cooperation with authorities. They saying Snoop stands accused of betrayal, echoing a troubling history of disloyalty that dates back to Tupac Shakur. Now, while Snoop been posting tributes to Nipsey and even released a song called Nipsey Blue in 2020, the street's starting to see these moves as damage control rather than genuine grief. When you really look at his actions, maintaining ties with Big U while Nipsey was opposing everything Big U stood for, it paints a picture of a man playing both sides. The conspiracy gets deeper when you consider the timing. Big U's RICO indictment revealed he'd been running a criminal enterprise since 2010, which means during his whole relationship with Nipsey, he was involved in extortion, murder, and other serious crimes. And Snoop, with all his industry connections and street knowledge, claiming he ain't know what Big U was really about, the way some people seeing it, Snoop's silence about Big U's criminal activities made him complicit in the environment that led to Nipsey's death. When you got the power and influence that Snoop has, staying neutral ain't really neutral. It's choosing a side. Federal authorities requesting Big U's cease and desist letter about the Nipsey allegations shows they taking this connection seriously. And with Big U facing life in prison for running a mafia-like enterprise, anybody who supported or enabled his operation gonna be under scrutiny. The street's been saying if Snoop really cared about Nipsey like he claimed, he would have warned him about Big U's dangerous nature or used his influence to protect him. Instead, Snoop maintained profitable relationships with both men, letting them handle their business while he stayed above the fray. But as the federal investigation unfolds and more details about Big U's criminal enterprise come to light, Snoop's position looking more and more compromised. The community that once respected him as an elder statesman, now questioning whether his loyalty was ever really with the people or just with whoever could benefit his career. The truth about what really went down between Nipsey, Big U, and Snoop might never come out completely, but the pattern of behavior and the connections being exposed paint a troubling picture of betrayal, greed, and the deadly consequences of choosing the wrong side when the streets is watching. The rise and fall of Nipsey Hussle's Killer Brotherhood. What up, fam? Now we about to dive deep into the real story that shook South Central to its core. The brutal assassination of Ermias Nipsey Hussle Askedom and all the twisted conspiracy theories that followed. What y'all about to hear ain't just about one man pulling a trigger, but about a whole web of betrayal, jealousy, and the deadly politics that run these LA streets. Let me paint y'all a picture of March 31st, 2019, a day that changed everything. Nipsey was posted outside his Marathon clothing store on Slauson and Crenshaw, chopping it up with his peoples when Eric Holder Jr. rolled pulled up for what seemed like a regular conversation. But yo, this wasn't no friendly neighborhood chat. This was the setup for cold-blooded murder. See, Holder and Nipsey both claimed rolling 60s. Both came from the same blocks, both understood the same street code. But while Nipsey evolved into something greater, a Grammy-nominated artist, community leader, and vision of what black excellence could look like, Holder stayed trapped in that crab-in-the-bucket mentality that keep our people destroying each other. The conversation between them lasted about 9 minutes, and according to witnesses, it centered around rumors that Holder was acting as an informant, a snitch for the authorities. Now, in gang culture, that accusation is basically a death sentence, and Holder knew it. But here's what makes this whole situation so diabolical. After that conversation, Holder left the parking lot, went somewhere to get strapped, and came back with murder on his mind. What's really twisted about this whole situation is how calculated it was. This wasn't no heat-of-the-moment reaction like Holder's defense tried to claim. The prosecution proved that Holder had quite a bit of time for premeditation and deliberation during that 10-minute gap. He left, armed himself with not one but 2 handguns, and came back with a specific plan to execute Nipsey in broad daylight. The level of disrespect Holder showed ain't just about gang politics. This was personal hatred mixed with jealousy that been eating him up inside for years. While Nipsey was building businesses, investing in the community, and showing young black men they could rise above the streets, Holder was stuck in the same mentality that keeps our people trapped in cycles of violence. When Holder returned about 10 minutes later, he was carrying 2 handguns and pure evil in his heart. He opened fire on Nipsey, shooting him 10 to 11 times from head to foot, including one shot that severed Nipsey's spinal cord. But that wasn't enough for this coward. After Nipsey was down, Holder kicked him in the head like he was some enemy instead of a brother from the same set. 2 other men, Kerry Lathan and Shermy Villanueva, also got hit in the crossfire, showing just how reckless and heartless this attack was. This wasn't no precision hit. This was rage and jealousy unleashed in broad daylight. The LAPD responded quick, and thanks to surveillance footage from multiple angles, they identified Holder within hours. By April 2nd, 2019, Holder was arrested at a mental health clinic in Bellflower, where he surrendered like the punk he really was. But what's really crazy is how the community reacted. While most people was mourning Nipsey's death, some was already connecting dots that the police didn't want to acknowledge. See, Nipsey wasn't just some random rapper who got caught up in street politics. He was actively working to transform his neighborhood and had powerful enemies who didn't want to see him succeed. But yo, the trial that followed exposed just how calculated this murder really was. Deputy District Attorney John McKinney argued this was cold-blooded and calculated murder, emphasizing that Holder had quite a bit of time for premeditation and deliberation during that 10-minute gap when he left to get his weapons. McKinney told the jury, saying, "You're through," before shooting him and shooting him a number of times, kicking him in the head. That's personal. The prosecution painted a picture of a man driven by pre-existing jealousy because Nipsey had become a world-known recording artist, while Holder remained a nobody in the streets. That jealousy mixed with the snitch accusation created a deadly combination that cost Nipsey his life. Holder's defense tried to play the heat of passion card, with his lawyer Aaron Jansen arguing that being called a snitch by someone as famous as Nipsey Hussle provoked an immediate reaction, but the jury wasn't buying that nonsense. On July 6, 2022, they found Holder guilty of first-degree murder, along with attempted voluntary manslaughter for the 2 wounded men. Judge H. Clay Jackie sentenced Holder to 60 years to life in prison on February 22nd, 2023 to 25 years to life for the murder, another 25 years for the firearm enhancement, and 10 years for injuring the bystanders. Even Holder's appeal got shot down in November 2024, confirming that this killer gonna spend the rest of his miserable life behind bars. But yo, the official story don't satisfy everybody. See, when a figure as beloved and influential as Nipsey Hussle gets murdered in broad daylight, people gonna ask questions, especially when the simple snitch explanation don't fully explain the level of hatred Holder showed. The biggest conspiracy theory centers around Nipsey's work on a documentary about Dr. Sebi, that Honduran herbalist who claimed he could cure AIDS and other diseases through natural remedies. Conspiracy theorists claim pharmaceutical companies and government agencies orchestrated Nipsey's murder to prevent him from exposing Dr. Sebi's cure and threatening their profits. This theory gained massive traction on social media, with YouTube videos like "Why the Illuminati Killed Nipsey Hussle" getting hundreds of thousands of views. People pointing to Nipsey's last tweet, "Having strong enemies is a blessing," as evidence he knew he was being targeted by powerful forces. The Dr. Sebi connection got even more traction when people started connecting other suspicious deaths. See, Dr. Sebi himself died in 2016 while in Honduran police custody on money laundering charges, and many believe he was murdered to silence his claims about natural cures. Then you got Lisa Left Eye Lopez from TLC, who died in a 2002 car crash in Honduras while visiting Dr. Sebi to explore his healing methods, claiming a pattern of eliminating anyone who promoted Sebi's work. But outlets like BBC, Snopes, and The Griot debunked these theories, pointing out they just fill the information vacuum that follows high-profile deaths. Another theory claimed Nipsey was killed by government forces because of his anti-gang activism. Since he was scheduled to meet with LAPD Commissioner Steve Soberoff and Chief Michelle Moore on April 1, 2019 to discuss reducing gang violence, some believed his community work threatened systemic interests. Social media posts compared Nipsey to Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and other black leaders who were allegedly killed for challenging the establishment. Malcolm, Fred Hampton, Tupac, Shakur, Darren Seals, Nipsey Hussle. Black men who lead by example and try to build something within their communities are always targets. But the most persistent conspiracy theory involves the allegations against Big U that we already covered. The claims by Loose Cannon and SKG about Big U orchestrating Nipsey's murder through his influence over the Rolling 60s and Eric Holder specifically got extra attention after Big U's RICO arrest. Some theorists argue the snitch accusation was just cover for a deeper conspiracy, with Holder being used as a pawn by more powerful forces. They point to how Nipsey was surrounded by other Rolling 60s members during the shooting, yet nobody tried to save him or chase Holder, suggesting some kind of setup. What adds weight to these theories is the pattern of violence against artists who challenge the status quo. The similarities between Nipsey's death and other suspicious murders in the hip-hop community can't be ignored. When you look at how many rappers who spoke truth to power ended up dead under questionable circumstances, it makes you wonder if there's really more to these stories than what the official reports tell us. But here's the real truth that all these conspiracy theories miss. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one. The LAPD's investigation, backed by surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and forensic evidence, proved that Eric Holder acted alone, driven by jealousy and the shame of being called a snitch by someone he could never measure up to. A friend of Nipsey's even debunked the government conspiracy theories in a YouTube interview, stating, "This ain't no government thing on Nipsey. This is unfortunate street business." The real tragedy is that while people been chasing these elaborate conspiracy theories, they missing the actual lesson of Nipsey's death, that jealousy, ignorance, and the crab in the bucket mentality within our own communities is what really killed him. Eric Holder represents everything Nipsey was trying to help our people rise above, but instead of embracing that elevation, Holder chose destruction. Nipsey's legacy continues through his Marathon store becoming a memorial, his Hollywood Walk of Fame star, and LA Metro renaming Hyde Park Station in his honor on his 40th birthday in 2025. He got posthumous Grammys for Racks in the Middle and higher, proving his impact extended far beyond the streets. But the conspiracy theories persist because they're easier to accept than the painful truth that sometimes our own people, driven by jealousy and self-hatred, become the biggest obstacles to our progress. Nipsey Hussle died, not because he threatened some shadow government, but because he represented everything Eric Holder knew he could never be, and that eaten him up inside until murder seemed like the only solution. What makes this even more heartbreaking is how Nipsey's death could have been prevented if the community had better systems in place to handle conflicts before they escalated to violence. The fact that two members of the same gang set could reach a point where one felt the need to murder the other shows how toxic the street culture really is, even when it's supposed to be about brotherhood and loyalty. The truth is, Nipsey's murder wasn't just the loss of one man. It was the destruction of a vision for how our communities could transform themselves. Every bullet that entered his body was a bullet fired at hope, progress, and the possibility that we could rise above the circumstances that have been holding us back for generations. And that's the real conspiracy. Not some elaborate government plot, but the simple fact that sometimes our own people will destroy the very thing that could save us all. We've come to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.